I know what some of you are thinking. Freddie Sayers has let himself go. And his dulcet RP tones have transformed into a lilting South Liverpool drawl. Well, I'm Jonny Ball, as Flo said. I'm not Freddie Sayers, so sorry to disappoint. But you may know me from my Twitter alter ego name, as Flo was saying earlier, Despotic Inroad, where I've been plying my trade as an anonymous troll for a few years until UnHerd decided to pull me out of obscurity. Our guest today, Maurice Glasman, needs absolutely no introduction. So without further ado, I want to know, Maurice, is this a Blue Labour government? Have you won?
No, is the answer. I just want to say hi to everybody. This is a unique experience for me. It's the sort of thing, if there was really bright lighting, looks like a sort of CND meeting in 1986. Well, just to give you an idea of my background. Attended, but not fully, is how I would put it. No is the answer. So what I would say is I once had an invitation from Pope Benedict to give a talk at the Vatican on Blue Labour, but in between the invitation and me going, he retired, which is unusual. I don't think it was any causal link. And then when I got there, so it was quite an official thing, and I had to meet Pope Francis, and I gave this talk on Blue Labour on a Friday afternoon in the Vatican when everybody wanted to go home. It was like a bad gig. And so I sat in front of Pope Francis, and he said to me in Italian, I won't speak in Italian, he said, "The primary virtue for you is patience." And I kind of took that quite seriously, and as opposed to getting involved in who's the leader, who's the deputy, I really don't care who the deputy leader of the Labour Party is. It's of no interest to me at all.
Who will you vote for, though?
No one. I've consistently not voted in leadership elections since 1974. So, that's long-standing. That's a long-standing position. And so what I see is that Blue Labour is a tradition of thought, a Labour tradition of thought, but it precedes Labour. It's very Catholic, very non-conformist, the idea of the Norman yoke, the idea of the freeborn English, the idea of liberty and democracy, and all of that was eviscerated by a kind of what I call a progressive amnesia, and particularly a hostility, theoretical and political, to New Labour, because they abolished history. Their whole thing was globalisation, technology, new. Beware of anybody who uses the word new, because it conceals an innumerable amount of things, but it isn't possible to be new. Everything is built on something inherited from the past and new combinations of that. So what I see is that the future is Blue Labour. I think it's moving that way, and I think the present moment is a very intense moment in that transition. But anybody who's been at party conference would know that they're still playing "Things Can Only Get Better." Have you? Okay, so here, the only thing you need to remember about today, things can only get better. That's not true, okay? The future, we die, for a start, we lose loved ones, we get rejected by people we love, very difficult things happen. The future is tragic, and we have to have a politics that can deal with tragedy, whereas this is just an ideology of idiotic optimism, which doesn't leave us prepared to do any of the necessary things that we have to do. So, is it a Blue Labour government? No. Is it a Blue Labour moment? Feels that way. But it's just, this is something I think that has to be built through the generations and restored, and to retrieve our understanding of the past and to respect all those thousands and thousands of people who really worked and sacrificed in order to build a better world. They are the people.
Why do you think a narrative is built that this is a Blue Labour government? I mean, you yourself have been interviewed in The Observer and elsewhere, saying that you have more links to Downing Street than ever before. There was a moment sort of 10, 15 years ago, I suppose, where you were sort of persona non grata. And that seems to have shifted. So why are people saying this is now a Blue Labour administration?
Because they haven't got any framework for understanding that the old, okay, so everybody here lived through this, so I think you'll understand what I'm saying, but please, when we get to the questions, I'll engage with it. The big event of my life was, you know, I had a very happy childhood, loving parents, and Spurs won trophies, you know, everything was okay. And then Margaret Thatcher got elected. And for me, that was, I don't think there's been a great work of art. I think the politics has been bullshit since then. I think we entered a world where there was no alternative to capitalism, no alternative to globalization, no political understanding of technology, no respect whatsoever for the working class, who were the sacrificed, abandoned, insulted, decimated, whichever way you want to call it. And all of that was done with the cruelty of progressive, you know, they are the victims of history, they're the left behind. Okay, so what we've got now is a completely different world. I think the Brexit referendum was the decisive moment to mark the beginning of the end of Thatcherism. So my rehearsed phrase is, well, Margaret Thatcher mercilessly initiated, Tony Blair immaculately consummated. It was all going that way. So if you said, well, what about industrial strategy? What about the dignity of labour? What about attachment to place? Nostalgic. And so everything about progressivism is this idea that things can only get better, that the arc of history bends in one way. And then Donald Trump got elected. And that ruptured the seamlessness of the teleology. Sorry to be so academic, but Jonny did go to university. I think I could talk to him that way. It disrupted the teleology of progress. So imagine being someone who built your whole ideology on things can only get better, and things are obviously, oh, well, the response is fascism, far right fascism. That's the immediate response, you know, hunker down, insult people, lose. So the reason it's called Blue Labour is because there isn't any alternative ideology to Blue Labour that actually challenges the progressive. But Blue Labour is significantly more socialist than this government and significantly more conservative than this government. And so what we have is, I'm in Labour, I'm devoted, you know, it is equivalent to Spurs. It's a kind of, I don't care who's leader, I don't care about Levy don't care about me. All I care about is Kulisevsky. That's one of my chants. I don't give a shit who's the chief rabbi. I'm not going to stop being Jewish. You know, it's identity, and it's a tradition that I love. But I'm looking 10 years ahead to when there could conceivably be a Blue Labour government.
Are you tempted by reform?
Well, you know, Marxists used to say, is reform historically necessary? That would be the question. So unless we can abandon the delusions of the last 40 years, unless we can let go of the EU, let go of globalization, restore the integrity of the state and its function, our armed forces, our police, but above all, industrial power, and particularly military industrial power, Labour will lose because it's not in tune with the time. Unless we can stop the boats, right? That's absolutely fundamental. Secure our border, restore national democratic politics. These are the things. So reform, look, Nigel Farage is a saloon bar Thatcherite and a Putin appeaser. It's inconceivable that I would ever. I absolutely support Ukraine. He's
shifting away from that slightly, though, isn't he, with nationalisation of the steel industry and water?
Yeah. I know. And he is in favour, like Andy Burnham, of the nationalisation of water, nationalisation of steel, but that's not embedded in any kind of state-led industrial strategy. He is. I remember in the Brexit referendum, I was on one side, he was on the other of the and he was talking a load about Singapore. You know, like we got
Singapore on Thames.
Yeah, we've got to go global. And then he is the worst aspect of MAGA in his obsequiousness to Putin. Putin is a tyrant and is a despot, and it's ugly, and I really support Ukraine as a matter of national interest and ethical solidarity. So, yeah, I don't take seriously. Richard Tice is going around the City of London talking about deregulation, and I think that's opportunistic positioning, but it's in tune with the time. What certainly working class people want is job security, industrial jobs, these things. So they're saying that, but I don't think they're going to. I'm not in any way serious about it yet.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned MAGA. I want to come on to it because you were the only British politician who went to the inauguration.
I didn't ask for it, you know, it happened to me.
It came through JD Vance, the invitation, was it? And
yeah.
And how do you square your support for what you call, is it the left side of MAGA Square?
Yeah.
How do you square that with your support for Ukraine? And how do you think Donald Trump's presidency has gone? So is Donald Trump a BlueLabour guy?
No, is the answer. And there's a couple of people that flirt with that, but they're not there yet. Steve Bannon is actually one who wants to see greater state engagement with industry. And Owen Cass, who runs the think tank American Compass, interesting conversations with him. No, they are essentially they're capitalist Stalinists. They want capitalism in one country, you know, America, and they think they've got the resources and the industrial and technological power to be virtually self-sufficient. So that they view globalization as an enormous trick practiced on them by the progressive elites to destroy the American working class through outsourcing.
And this is where you agree with them?
No, this is where I understand where they're at. So when I talk about MAGA Square, when I went to the States, I was taken to these rallies, and it was overwhelmingly working class. I mean, I witnessed loads of things that we could talk about, but what was unmistakable was truckers, it was plumbers, it was a working class scene, and they were celebrating. So I'm what I call Labour populist. This is amazing, but how is it the case that all the working class energy was for Trump? That's where I am, and I can see exactly that being played out here.
Yeah.
Right. So
Andy Haldane said Nigel Farage was a tribune of the working class. So yeah. that's the parallel.
Well, just everybody in a bit of political business to go. I want you to get together with Andy Haldane and work on the industrial strategy. I'm just saying it in front of everybody, Jonny.
Yeah.
He's an important. You've got a city broker who went to Dulwich College, who is greeted with enthusiasm in working class communities. Our Prime Minister is not greeted with enthusiasm in any working class communities.
Or any community.
We've got a
record. Even the Labour Party.
Well, I support him on that, because obviously I'm not greeted with any enthusiasm inside the Labour Party either. But it's good to be unpopular in Labour, but it's really bad to be unpopular with workers. And so what we've got to look at is, why is it that Trump and MAGA engaged with the hopes and longings of an abandoned and dispossessed working class? So I've developed this thing, Jonny, with the lanyard class, and that was all from, yeah, I think you should. By the way, the lanyard class is
plenty of them here.
It's not people who wear lanyards, it's the people who make you wear lanyards. And it's an idea of compliance, conformity. So what I witnessed in MAGA Square was people just throwing their lanyards in the bin and shouting in public, "Free at last, free at last." So they view the ruling class, their oppressors, as HR managers, people who sack them for making a joke. I mean, so it's a visceral class element. And obviously BlueLabour is about being a tribune of that sentiment, and that is going to involve hurting people's feelings, sadly.
But I think people look at someone like Keir Starmer, and he is the epitome of that class you just described, the sort of officious, sort of middle class, hectoring HR guy.
Public prosecutor, he's got all that. I think the truth is slightly different. So I'm in favour of, for example, closing half the universities and turning them into vocational colleges. I think that the whole, I support the rule of law, not the rule of lawyers. So someone like Hermer, to me, he is the epitome of the arrogant progressive fool. That someone who's... Keir Starmer actually had a reasonably difficult childhood. His mum was depressed, his dad was taciturn, his brother was disabled. He had to take responsibility young in quite a poor home and hold it together, and I love him for that and respect him for that. But then, like so many of us, Jonny, he went to university and got stupid. He forgot all that. And he started thinking that the world was made of words, and if you passed human rights laws, there would be peace on earth. And then Putin invades Ukraine. Where do you go then? I mean, this whole obsession with laws and words, when politics is a vocation of the deed, above all. So I think he's found action very difficult. I think he's found the world very shocking. But what I see is that somehow or other, I think that with Shabana Mahmood, he's made a choice that would be inconceivable a year ago at the Home Office. I mean, she was seen as a BlueLabour appointment. Oh, she's way better than BlueLabour. Shabana Mahmood is like a holy object to me because she's a Muslim woman who loves this country. This is something we've got to treasure. And she loves the working class. And she will do everything in her power to stop the boats, secure the borders, and she's quite... So, yeah, what I'm saying is we are there in this conversation. I'm just particularly saying that Shabana Mahmood is a choice by Keir Starmer that would have been absolutely inconceivable on July the 4th last year. The idea that we would have to have someone who secured our borders as a matter of principle and honour. And she took the fight to the human rights lawyers on day one, when there was that deportation of the Eritrean who suddenly was a victim of modern slavery. She absolutely challenged it, and the court said he shouldn't go on Monday, but he went on Thursday. That's unprecedented. So this is a very long journey towards reality, to goodness. My thing, Jonny, is when Moses stood on Mount Sinai face to face, you went to Catholic school, you know what I'm talking about. He's face to face with God on Mount Sinai, and God introduces himself and says, I'm a God of mercy and grace. I'm slow to anger and full of kindness and truth. Now, my point is, he didn't say kindness or truth. It's difficult, but to have that balance between kindness and everything that progressives believed is wrong. Every assumption they made about reality has been refuted. They find reality itself to be far right, unpleasant, and essentially they're building an entire politics around resisting reality. It can't work, it can't be. So words have to be spoken, and by the grace of God, Shabana Mahmood is someone they find very difficult to hate. Mm.
It seems to me with people like Shabana Mahmood, she's strong, obviously, on crime, migration, border security, ECHR. She's got some strong words to say against. The side of it that I think is missing, we got the blue side there. The side that's missing often is the Labour side, the economic radicalism, okay, the political economy.
I mean, so just to clarify to everybody, Shabana Mahmood is not a person I have to talk to about those things. she is in favour of a national economic strategy of a bordered economy. That's yet to come through. She's
But
quite
what about
meticulous.
nationalising utilities like Andy Burnham was suggesting, or public investment in housing?
She would go, she would absolutely support that. But that's the point. Nationalisation of water, definitely. Nationalisation of steel has to be. Nationalisation of railways, it should be. But that's not the central component. The central component is to have a state-led industrial strategy that affects the entire economy. And what I would say, if there's a politician who understands the need for so the old era, one of the ways I conceptualise the difference between the old and the new, the old era was corporate social responsibility. The new era is national economic strategy. And don't worry about that. But that's not her job. And she's quite meticulous about not going outside the remit. But she has all of that. I mean, Ernest Bevin is on her desk. I mean, yeah, I want a bomb, I want a bloody big bomb, and I want the Union Jack on it. Yeah.
Okay. So it seems that colleagues of yours, Jonathan Rutherford, wrote a piece. I think Jonathan Hinder shared it. Were sort of getting behind Mahmood in the same week that various other people were getting behind Burnham. And obviously we know Wes Streeting is the sort of Blairite option. So we have this sort of this leadership battle sort of emerging under the surface.
Jonny, I've got really
what do you think?
strong
Is
advice.
it time for Keir Starmer to go?
No. It's really strong advice. People involved in politics are obsessed with leadership, particularly when there's no leadership, right? So it's meaningless. It's all meaningless. The work to be done is to create the foundations for the restoration of our armed forces, our police, right? Then industry. So that's why I say close half the universities, turn them into vocational colleges. We've got to bring both investment in from abroad and also our own capital to be directed internally. This is a massive change of era. It's not going to be that Andy Burnham or Angela Rayner or Keir Starmer, these are in a way really meaningless people. I mean, they don't have a strategic vision of national renewal. So what's going on under the surface?
But he still has to win an election, doesn't he? And he's more unpopular than Liz Truss even.
Yeah.
He's the most unpopular Prime Minister in history on a YouGov poll today.
So I've got ideas about that. You know, I think definitely it's a good idea. Let's invade France. You know, that will boost his popularity. You know, if they can't control their border, we will.
I think it would help him to do a sort of John Prescott punch or something like something.
You know, one thing is there's 4 years to go till the next election. Just to say to everybody, I'm probably one of the oldest people here, but in that terrible day that Margaret Thatcher was elected, I was 18, and the first year and a half were catastrophic. I mean, they had no direction, the cabinet was split. No one remembers this. It took that government a year and a half to really find its feet, and then you had Big Bang, then you had the sale of council houses, then you had the Falklands, you had the budget.
We need Javier Milei to invade the Falklands.
The 1981 budget was a crucial thing, but no one remembers how crap she was in that first period. Now we've got another 4 years of government, so this is the ethical choice. Do you abandon it and start getting involved in leadership campaigns for rival candidates who don't know what they're talking about, have got no idea of the profundity of the change? It's life or death. At the moment, it's life or death for Labour, because I never thought it was conceivable that the Conservative Party would die, but it's dead. It's gone. I wrote about it Jonny, apologies to you as a Liverpudlian, but I wrote about it in The Sun. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Boo. Hillsborough. And what I said is that they're like ghosts, the Conservatives. They talk, but we cannot hear. They live among us, but we cannot see them. I mean, they're gone. I'd liken them to the Titanic. They're just gone.
Can Jenrick save them? Can Jenrick save them if he replaces Kemi?
Are you joking? This guy yomping around the refugee camps in Calais when he was all part of sacking Roger Scruton. You know, he's unforgiven, and he's very poor, useless. I mean, this is not anyone of any significance. They're dead. So Reform are the force that's emerging with a very classic Conservative coalition, actually, of the working class and the shires. You know, the small towns, working class small towns and the shires.
Gavin and Stacey coalition, Paul Embry calls it.
What's that?
The Gavin and Stacey coalition.
Yeah. Perfect. He's great. The Conservatives are dead. What I'm trying to say at this conference to Labour is, you think we can't die? You're completely wrong. If we can't move into the space where the working class are and be a tribune of their hopes, what's the point of us? We'd be dead. You know, we'll have Dawn Butler as leader with 48 MPs. That's what the polling looks like.
Yeah, I'm just a bit sceptical that Keir Starmer is the guy. I mean, there's
No, Johnny, this is the point. He is not, but the work has got to be done. That's the dilemma. It's not, we can only do the work when there's a new leader. You've got to engage. In a way, it's irrelevant. Do you think Andy Burnham has a vision for how to sort this out?
Well, I think he set out a sort of soft Corbynite vision, didn't he, this week? But I mean,
listen to that, soft Corbynite. What the hell is that? Really?
Well, he's nationalising the utilities, 40 billion on council housing.
Yeah, votes for 16-year-old.
But Keir Starmer's bringing that in.
I mean, yeah. And what about PR? Is he in favour of this?
He's in favour of PR, yeah.
So why don't you just join the Lib Dems? Really? really. Oh, please, don't applaud. It's too uncomfortable for me at a Labour event. I just get shaky. No, this is the point. They've got the Lib Dems, they've got the Greens. What the hell? Labour supports the Labour interest, Johnny. The Labour interest is fundamental to that.
But as sociologists call them ABC1s and C2Ds, i.e. the working class vote, is abandoned Labour wholesale and gone to Reform. And I think the only...
Did you see, Johnny, that? Sorry. It's the first time we've met and I've wanted to meet him for years, so I'm overexcited. But did you see the fact that the greatest determinant of whether you voted Labour is whether you went to public school?
Yeah.
That's where we are. Now, this is an alien body in the beast. So there's, you know, I guess you probably don't believe in the resurrection.
I'm sceptical.
Yeah. I believe, and the dead will live. Yeah, I believe that, and that Labour will. It has without being the body of the working class. It's pathetic. It's useless, and we would deserve to die. That's the point.
So there's a paper going around backbenchers after they came back from the summer recess. It's called "What We Learnt on Our Summer Holidays." And it says, Keir Starmer has no vision and the government has no purpose. He will never have one. The cabinet is incapable of leadership. And you agree with all of that, but you don't think he should go.
That's how useless the alternatives are.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to open it up to the audience in a second, but I just want to ask you one more thing. It seems to me that there's almost two eras of Blue Labour. 10, 15 years ago, people like Mark Steers and Jonathan Cruddas and Rutherford had these quite sort of, I want to say nice sort of visions of Merry England, and it's almost like John Major's sort of warm beer in the village green and a sort of nice sort of Orwell type English socialism. But it seems to me in this latest era, sort of Blue Labour 2.0, if you like, since your profile has rose in prominence with the likes of Morgan McSweeney and Downing Street, but it seems it's much more MAGA aligned, it's much harsher, it's in favour of things that perhaps it wouldn't have been in favour of back in the sort of early 2010s. Would you agree with that characterisation? Am I wrong?
Yeah, you're wrong. Sorry to say, on our first date, it's a problem, I know. I don't mean it, okay?
My first dates are always like this.
Oh, good. It's been a long time since I had a first date, so I've got to think about that. No, it's not like that. So love relationships are central to this story. I think where I've hardened is I'm now convinced that the progressive left have no epistemology or ontology. They've got no conception of history, and they are the class enemy. And that's where we are. And now, whereas before, we could go to Compass, we could go here, it will be. They hated Merry England. I love Merry England. That's not the difference. But there's a change in the political weather. And if we can't articulate the disgust of the working class with their ruling class for the last 40 years, we're dead. So it's that relationship between kindness and truth. And anybody who's just, it's not kindness or truth. And just telling the truth, if you've got people who are in denial of reality, is very painful. And I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but as you said, you're wrong.
Fair enough. I mean, we're obviously in a much harsher world with Trump, protectionism, Ukraine, post-COVID.
Okay, how about calling it much more...
What about Tommy Robinson protests?
But he's been around since I started. I mean,
but he didn't have 200,000 people marching
No,
through
but that's our failure. You know, 200,000 people on the street and we're nowhere near we're not leading it. That should be a socialist, you know.
You got in big trouble for saying that we should be reaching out to EDL marches many years ago.
15 years ago,
yeah.
So that's why I say there's no... Okay, so this is about anti-fascist strategy. It's really important to talk about. Everywhere where there was a popular front, which included communists, liberals, Greens, you know, add them all up, we could beat the Tories. Tories are dead, by the way. Everywhere that strategy was pursued, fascism won. Everywhere. Here, Labour wouldn't have anything to do with it. It certainly challenged the black shirts on the street, and then, short order, went into a coalition with the Conservatives and really beat the Nazis. Really beat fascism, not this mockery of student union bullshit. Our country defeated fascism. It's a hugely important lesson. If you've got people on the street and you demonize and polarize against those people, you will lose, and you will deserve to lose, because what they're screaming at you is that you're not very nice to us. And we don't see our sin in that, we don't see our culpability in that. Everybody should go to university, everybody should read, the industry is dead, the place he lives in is a shithole. Oh, and by the way, vote Labour. What are you saying?
Well, the Prime Minister described reform as racist today. Is that not?
This is really terrible. Nigel Farage is a Putin appeaser. Nigel Farage is a saloon bar Thatcherite. Nigel Farage is not a racist. And I've seen him at work, and I know that he kicks out racists from reform. You know, so this is, to call everybody, this is the old politics. You just demonise people. You say, oh, you're racist, and you're sexist, and you're colonialist, and you're this, and you're that. And unbelievably, people don't really want to hear what you think. They don't sorry, I was going to say something. They don't care what you think. And then there's 200,000 people on the street with a Union Jack, and all you could do is say, racist. I mean, this is a pathetic politics. Okay, student union politics is not politics. That's what I think. Okay.
I think I've taken enough time with just you to myself, so I'm going to open it up to the audience. There's been plenty of questions.
Not really.
I'm sure it'll come up. I'll try and angle it towards that anyway. Gentleman in the front,
yep.
yeah.
Hello. Is it true?
What's your name,
Keith
please?
Swimmer. I'm from Golders Green, so anyway.
I'm not. I'm from Stamford Hill. These are the two Jewish tribes that really hate each other.
Okay. Is it true that you were shown in America a picture of Peter Mandelson with Jeffrey Epstein, and that you warned the Prime Minister or Downing Street about his links, and he ignored you? Is that true?
Yes, that is true. It was impossible to ignore. So what happened when I went, so just so everybody will know the story, I imagined that the Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister and the Ambassador would also be invited. So I had, if Sally Chatterton is watching, this is just to bear witness to the truth of the story. So I had a great idea. So, as you know, smoking marijuana is illegal in this country. And I was made a lord. And so I don't think lawmakers should be law breakers, but I read that in Washington, D.C., marijuana was legal. So I said, I could do a Hunter Thompson, Fear and Loathing in Washington, D.C., like describe these mad Republicans like reptiles and animals, and there's me. And I realized that things weren't going to plan, so there was this sort of WhatsApp group was created. This is how people think they should do politics, of me, Peter Mandelson, David Lammy and Keir Starmer, because we were going to Washington together. I noticed that nobody was writing anything in it. So I said, where shall we meet? Shall we have a discussion? Nothing. And then I got a call from David Lammy's SPAD saying none of us had been invited. That was the end of my marijuana dream. Okay, I had to then, my wife said, get a new suit, get new shoes, have your hair cut, get going. And then when I got there, and the only instruction I got from number 10 was make friends. Okay, just, we don't have any make friends. So suddenly I'm in a diplomatic situation, so I talked a lot about Winston Churchill and all this. And then I went into the MAGA square, and all these people were just showing me photos of Peter Mandelson blowing out the birthday candles with Jeffrey Epstein, Peter Mandelson going clothes shopping. Have you ever been clothes shopping with another man? Have you ever done that?
I don't think I have.
No, it's a very intimate thing, isn't it? I mean, I was like, what? And then there's this photo of Peter Mandelson in a bathrobe, and I'm like, so what I did, and obviously in America, QAnon and the Epstein paedophile ring is a very powerful sociological fact. I mean, he was a paedophile and he was doing sex trafficking, but obviously it's a conspiracy theory as far as we're concerned. So yes, I did write a note saying, whatever you do, don't appoint Peter Mandelson, that's true. And yeah, it's true that was ignored, but I did understand from the point of view, Peter Mandelson went over there to negotiate a trade deal. Now he negotiated Lisbon, let's not forget, that was an enormous, and he was the driving force of the Lisbon Treaty. He was the driving force behind the Good Friday Agreement. Peter Mandelson is probably the best and most negotiator of complex deals that we've got. So I completely understood the logic of his appointment. And I say this having opposed Peter Mandelson in every conceivable way. I think he and Nigel Farage are the two most significant politicians of the last 40 years. Mandelson created New Labour. He selected Blair and Brown as the two new MPs. Globalisation, modernisation, and you can have welfare and markets. I mean, he's a hugely significant politician, as is Farage. Those two shine out to me of the last 40 years as the most significant figures. But he did that, and this was bound to explode. So it was just, look, I don't expect my advice to be heeded. I'm not offended by it, but I'm just saying, if you were there, you'd understand that Americans were telling me, why are you doing this? Why are you sending this guy here? And that in the end, it was bound to happen.
Why do you think Morgan McSweeney, who's said to be a Blue Labour plant, was lobbying for his appointment if all of those things are...
Okay, here. Morgan McSweeney and me, our friendship was really based not on, is that in 2008, the BNP won 12 seats on Dagenham.
Yeah.
I was a friend of John Crudder's. I mean, this is where this circle, Jonathan Rutherford was around then. Margaret Malone is now the MP. And there was this, and we would meet 8:30 every morning in the Transport Cafe in Dagenham, and we'd go out and talk to people and try and work out how to defeat the BNP. I just say Morgan was really little. He was like 20. I think he was in his final year at university or something. And he'd turn up every day at 8:30 and he'd go out. Now, there's a friendship there that goes back. We won all the seats. You know, this was great times, but he's in the sense that he learned to listen. You know, Arnie Graf, the great American organizer, he came over under Ed Miliband and was then evicted from the country because they leaked that he was working and not on a tourist visa. That's how well he was received in head office. And Arnie is like a meticulous organizer. He used to use his stopwatch. The average length of time he worked out between a Labour member or canvasser meeting a voter and the Labour canvasser telling the voter that they were wrong was 7 seconds. Right? This is a true story, 7 seconds. And the whole organising strategy was try 30 seconds, right? And a lot of people fell by the wayside. No, it's not immigration, it's Tory cuts, it's not this, it's that. No, and all the rubbish in your street is not because the council's not picking it up, it's something else. But Morgan is a political strategist, and I could completely understand why he had a blue Labour power in one ear and a new Labour power in the other. I can completely understand, because Tony Blair won 3 elections, and these are serious people who know how government works. I completely understand the logic. What the issue was a massive cultural difference between the United States and the UK. Here, we were much slower on the paedophile ring QAnon aspect of Epstein. So Peter Mantelson's a really serious negotiator, but it was in America that the thing exploded and blew him up.
Got you. Right, another question.
Hello, my name's Zach. Sorry if I stumbled. This is my first ever conference or anything like this. I heard you speaking before about immigration, and I'm just wondering, do you believe the answer to Labour's current working class popularity struggles is to pander to the surface social issues of immigration rather than addressing the real issues facing working class people, which is the economic depravity and the social destitution that they face?
Yeah.
You got your economy in there.
Yeah, nice. Thanks for that. And just say this is a bit nicer event than most Labour conference events. I don't draw any general conclusions, but really welcome. Okay, so the immigration is part of the economic model, which I call the Deliveroo economy, which is you bring in migrants to deliver food to people who've forgotten how to eat. It's cheap labour is the key. So it's a constant supply for the service economy of cheap labour, which is absolutely required by the economic model set up by Thatcher and then continued by New Labour. So clearly, it's the case that like the boats is a symbol of the uselessness of our government to control its borders. That has to be resolved, but that's not going to resolve the issue. That can only be resolved by genuine socialist economic policy of reindustrialization, of respecting the dignity of work, rather than just making money. I mean, it's astonishing, Jonny, what we've lived through these last 50 years in terms of what is respected. Oh, you've got to admit, Jim Radcliffe, what a great guy. Hope there's no Man United supporters, but while he's there, because he's just an asset stripper, developer, we haven't really built anything that's significant for a very, very long time. So I'm basically agreeing with what you're saying, but I see them as two sides of the same coin. The immigration and the economic model need each other, and both have got to be resolved.
Thanks.
I hope that's okay. We could continue. I smoke. We could continue outside if you want.
Gentleman in the other corner, yeah, the far corner. Then I'll come to you in the front.
So my name's David. It's interesting what you say about sort of...
What's your name? Sorry.
David, Little Fair.
David.
We've met before.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hi.
It's interesting what you say about deindustrialisation. I've booked a panel tomorrow night, 5:30.
I'm supposed to be there, aren't I?
Yeah, you're supposed to be there. It's probably one of the hardest sells I've had in 3 years of booking panels at this conference, and yet we've got contributors there who are from a closed Vauxhall car plant, a closed Grangemouth chemical plant, a closing oil plant in the South, Lindsay, and the saved Scunthorpe steel plant. So if anybody's actually interested to discuss deindustrialisation, I'd love to see them there. The question I was going to ask, though, is how are we going to reach these working class voters? Because my personal opinion is the next election is getting decided by people who didn't vote in the last election. And anybody who is in a red wall CLP or something like that will know that in large swathes of the poorest parts of the country, our party's on its last legs. Most of the members are close to retirement, and the actual ground game doesn't really exist. So how are we going to find them?
It's what we spoke about earlier, I think too superficially, about death and resurrection. The Labour, for me, it would be a heartbreak and a tragedy for the Labour movement to die, for the Labour Party to die, because it's been such a blessing. Don't forget, 20s, 30s, everywhere else in Europe went fascist and communist, we didn't. Labour stayed straight with the working class stayed straight with Parliament. When the war came, they went to fight. And then when they got back, they voted in a Labour government. These were good times. I mean, this is a huge historical achievement of the Labour movement. But deeper, David, deeper. County Durham has already happened. Just to explain to people, County Durham was, you could call it the cradle of the Labour movement, because in County Durham, they developed maternity hospitals by the Labour movement, primary schools by the Labour movement. They created an insurance system for mines that was all paid for by subs within the Labour movement. And people understood it. And for 100 years, Labour has controlled 100 years continuous. At the last May Day, because this decimation is always going on May Day, just to piss me off, is Durham 54 Reform 6 Labour. This is a wipeout. This is being killed in your cradle. And still you couldn't get a response. So, David, I'm staying the extra hours for your panel talk. I was going to go home, and I'll tell you why. I didn't want to be around to comment on Keir Starmer's speech, okay? So I booked my ticket. Tragically, I can't comment on his speech because I'm not there. I'm on the train. But don't tell anybody I'm here, but I'm coming to your panel because I think it's that important that we have to engage with this reindustrialization. So actions speak louder than words. One of the reasons I like Shabana Mahmood so much is she doesn't say much. She really gets on with her job. And yet, you feel it. Stop talking deeds. Only deeds will redeem us. It's a Catholic moment.
And gentleman at the front, he's had his hands up every time.
It's Nick from Southwest London. So first of all, Maurice, thank you very much for your clear-eyed and historically aware analysis of where we are as a party. My background's as a scientist,
nice.
So I deal in the truth. However, I'm now a communications consultant, so I also know that the truth is not enough. It's not enough to be right. So the question is, how do we get from where we are to a position where the Labour Party is taking these sorts of considerations seriously?
Yeah, okay, so it's about restoration. Okay, so to say to everybody that after lengthy consideration, I call the era of 1979, and really it was consummated in 2024 with Trump. That's the end of that era. And that era, I call it an era of liberal globalization, where you couldn't challenge technology, you couldn't challenge globalization, you couldn't challenge multilateral trade deals. You couldn't, if you did, which I did, I'm just telling you, I was just called nostalgic at best, reactionary. They had all manner. Marx did this to utopian socialists. Oh, they're all utopian. They're all nostalgic. He was, of course, a cruel modernist. You know, and I reject that aspect. Although alienation and the theory of capital and surplus value are still
Early Marx.
I prefer his middle work. Okay, so let's say I think the early stuff is anyway. That's not the answer to your question. My apologies. So I think the new era we're in is an era of restoration. I got that when I was in the States. I never thought about it before. Make America great again. It was the restoration, so revival. So I say our guide is our tradition, our Labour tradition. How did we deal with poverty and dehumanisation in County Durham? We associated, we built institutions, people paid in. Okay, these are clues for what I'm going to give the Frankfield Memorial Lecture on October the 16th. And he was the MP for Birkenhead. And I'm calling it Courage, Contribution and Covenant. Now those were the three pillars, I think, of Frankfield's political life. And I think he should be honoured. I think he had courage. We're going to have to look at contributory systems, right? But that's part of our tradition. This is not a step backwards from... When was everything free? When did everything start? We've got to look at that then. Association, organisation. We've got to restore ourselves through actually reclaiming our own tradition. So this is the paradox. Sorry about this, guys, but it's coming up to 5. I think I can say paradox without... A paradox is something that sounds wrong but is true. So the old is the new. Tradition defines modernity. These are things I could talk through, but I really believe and guide me. Labour needs to be itself. That's all it needs to be perfect. Nationalisation, secure borders, behave yourself, be nice to your mum. I mean, Jonny, even you've got to remember those things as being ordinary.
You can ask me Mum, I don't know.
I hope he's nice. I mean, I hope he's nice. I mean, that's when BlueLabour started. You know, I used to do these student events, and I said, how many of you rung your mum and told you love them? None. I said, everybody. We didn't have meetings. They were just long telephone phone calls. Hello, Mum. That's when we were nice. Okay? What I'm saying is all these things are what is required. Civic order. You know, these things are absolutely primary to the Labour tradition. Anti-revolutionary, monarchist, all these things. To retrieve I mean, Attlee argued in a series of essays that it was only the monarchies in Europe that had socialist programs after 45, Scandinavian countries, Dutch, because it brings the stability required to have radical programs. Is that modernization requires tradition, I guess. So more to say, but you understand, we don't need anything other than our tradition to guide us, but it's the one thing we despise. It's tragic.
I think we got time for one more question. Just gentleman in the middle.
Why didn't you take 3 just to end it all?
Shall
one
we?
There, one
we got
there.
time? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, do a triple.
Hi, Juliet Samuel. So there's persuading the Labour Party, but then you have to persuade the population. So how do you get to, from a state where you basically have worship of the consumer and, you know, cost of living is the way that manifests in politics, right, to a situation where you're reindustrializing and potentially costs are going up. You've had a period of globalization where everything's been cheap labor, cheap production, cheap inputs. And I just wonder how you get from where we are now to where you want to go without, you know, some kind of hardship on the way, significant hardship of that kind.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Yusuf. I'm on the Committee for Labour Students, and first of all, the first thing I want to say is, as a Muslim who loves this country, I really respect what you say about Shabana. But so some people might say that what Labour First currently is, it's just a newsletter and a website. So my question is, do you envision an infrastructure being built for Blue Labour, or will it just remain an idea?
As politicians say, thank you, Yusuf, for your question.
Could make a Blue Labour momentum.
David Henke, Byline Times. Now, you mentioned about bringing back vocational higher education. It existed in the 1970s with the polytechnics, but they regarded themselves as second-class citizens and wanted the tag university. I'd like to know how you're going to breathe fire to actually get this done, because actually I think it's something we lost and is probably responsible for the decline that happened post-Thatcher.
Okay, so I'll try and take them in sequence, if I can remember. Okay, so I talked about the era of progressive globalization, Julia, and the era that we are in, which I'm trying to conceptualize an era of restoration of borders, restoration of institutions. And this relates to what David was saying too, but I'll deal with that specifically. In this era, these words will have to be spoken: sacrifice, constraint. It's that the endless, Leonard Cohen had this great line in his final album: they whisper still the ancient stones, the blunted mountains weep, as he died to make things holy, so we died to make things cheap. That's the point, is that we've got a system where people are dying in disgusting conditions in China. They put nets up in China to stop people committing suicide on the 24-hour shifts. We've got to reckon with all of this and reckon with the sin of all of this. This is part of this new era is going to be scary. It's going to be volatile. It's going to be democratic. But what I'm hearing from people is they understand reality, that you can't have... Peter Mandelson once explained to me, you don't understand, Maurice, he said, our philosophy is and, not and, or. So you can have a welfare state, and you can have your car, and you can have your holiday, and you can have your diversity, but you don't have to live with the immigrants because you've got a nice house in a gated community. You can have it all. It's just not true, Juliet. So what's going to be here, this is one of the big issues of the coming politics, is a politics of sacrifice, a politics of solidarity. And diversity is a natural fact. Solidarity is a political achievement. And I think one of the central things is to think about that, is to do that. Which brings me to Yusuf's point, I get it. I didn't have any idea when all this started that this would come to this. So I am by training an organizer, but I thought, I could just write. I had a bit of an ambition like you. I could just write, and nice. So there is a recognition among Blue Labour is really, really not me anymore. There's MPs, there's loads of people around. I'm very interested in him coming in. Andy Haldane is part of that story, by the way. I mean, it's been 10 years of industrial strategy work that I need to send you. And I recognise that there's got to be some form of organisation. So Yusuf, please bid, it's particularly, I've noticed people under the age of 30 really want to get stuck in on this. So what are we going to have? Are we going to have reading groups? Or are we going to have actual network? How are we going to do it? I'm completely open. So what I say to you is please contact. Go to the website, but there will be now a response. We're trying, so things I hate in life, asking people for money, I hate it. It makes me feel ill, and I prefer smoking really to dying that way. And But somehow or other, we're going to have to raise some money to get an organiser to do those things. But Yusuf, please be in touch. And then David, I've just got to say, David was the first ever journalist I ever met. Do you remember we did that stuff on the City of London? Oh man, that would be the final story. This is how I entered this world. Tony Blair and the City of London decided that the city needed modernising. Do you remember, David? And so the franchise for the City of London is still outside of the control of the state. It's from time immemorial, before the conquest, from Roman times. The City of London has led, let's say, a charmed existence of being outside sovereignty. And they decided, in the spirit of modernisation, so all they had was the partner vote. It was just law firms and accountancy firms from the 1880s. So in their genius, this is such a brilliant New Labour story, they decided that because they wanted to give a vote to the Chinese banks, to the Russian banks, to the enormous corporations that had moved into the city, who were disenfranchised. How tragic. So you've got an ancient political institution that is entirely devoted to capital. It's true. And I witnessed this. My university was just on the edge of the city, and I was watching all of, so anyway, in some bizarre move, me and my friend William, who was a vicar, the chaplain of London Metropolitan, they decided to do a franchise where if you had one employee, you got 10 votes. If you had 10 workers, you got 1 vote, 20 workers, but the workers had no vote. So unbelievably, me and my friend William went to the House of Lords as a petition saying they were bringing in the slavery franchise in Britain, and Britain never shall be slaves, right? And David was the only journalist who noticed anything about what we were doing. So I will always love you, David, for what you did during that time. Now, here's the issue. We've got to have a conversation about the dignity of labour and vocation, where it is superior to a university education. You know, that is one of the things that I think was very wicked about New Labour. All of you go to university, all of you get a degree, all of you get a job answering emails for a hospital.
Be a lanyard class member.
Come to the lanyard class, move away from your mum, don't be nice to her, call her a racist, that's the plan. And it's going to be great. Everything will things can only get better, guys, if you follow this path. So this is a huge institutional rupture. And Yusuf, just say, this is the politics we've got to pursue. You know, how do we do that? That is both kind and truthful. To go back, you know, what are we going to do with people? They've got to retrain. I mean, AI is coming, David, and our analysis, Jonny, is 60% of state jobs could be done by AI. That's the level of emailing, that's the level of just mundane answering to procedural questions.
So you're a techno-optimist when it comes to AI, or?
No, I'm a techno-tragedist. What I'm saying is, the tragedy is what's going to happen to people's livelihoods, but this was exactly the same as Ruskin, the machine and the arts and crafts. So this whole thing with vocational training, so you don't have to answer emails, you can be a plumber. You don't have to answer emails, you could be a gardener. You don't have to you could be a carer. And those things are dignified, those things are paid. That's the vision I've got of a compassionate vocational country with the minimum amount of bullshit. That's the dream.
I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you very much, Maurice.